Hold on. Here we go. Bluetooth mode. Back. This is Straight Talk, and I am your host, Isaiah Israel. I'm hoping that my boy will be here too, Black. But if not, then we're just gonna do the show like we always do and hold it down. So tonight we're gonna go over Venezuela and earthquakes that are just rounding out throughout the world that's happening. So, with that being stated, the show's not going to last that long. Hey, Brother Willie, man, I really appreciate you being here, man. Just you and me. That's all we need, bro. That's all we need. So, yeah, it's going to be one for the night. But you know what? There's a lot of things going on in this world that are not really being paid attention to. I can understand, the war, Carmelo, other things that are happening. But you ever get that sick feeling, that sunken feeling in your stomach that something that's not right? You know what I mean? That you can just sense it and feel it. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And I don't think we're going to be not too far off the mark, not too far off the target, man. It's right there. So we're going to go through it one by one. But first, I want to get into the X file. And hold on. Let me bring up the share screen. And we can go right into the X Files. So, what was happening before? I would, bring the X Files up like this, and then, for whatever reason, it would just go somewhere else because I'm not able to, like, click on the picture. I can click on a picture and it'll stay there. I'm not worried about that. I'm talking about. Hold on. Talking about like videos and stuff like that. So I'm gonna do the X Files first, and we can get that out of the way and just really look at the overarching mentality of the beast we call white people. They got all the motherfucking time in the world with their own. And here we go. A white man stabbed his mother 48 times. A man had a misunderstanding with his mom. Out of rage, he grabbed a knife and stabbed her countless times before the police showed up. Police found him stabbing her and gave him warnings but couldn't stop. They gunned him down. She died on the way to the hospital after the son was neutralized and arrested. The fuck you mean he was neutralized and arrested? What happened to forgiveness? Why would you do this to your mom? Are we living with, of course we're living with animals. Are we living with animals? Let's watch this and I'll be right back. Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Now one more boy! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Yo, back up! Drop it, Steven! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Tommy, watch out! Drop the knife now! Tommy, watch out! He's coming in! David! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Tommy! Tommy, I'm coming in! Tommy, where is he? Go! I got you. Police shots fired! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Now, you know damn well, Brother Willie, if that was somebody black with a knife, they would have shot him right then and there. He was just lucky I wasn't on the call. But I don't know if he died or not. But the idea is that they got all the motherfucking time and patience with white folks. 90% of the people who are killing cops in America are white men and boys. It's not us. Here you got one white boy who was knocked out. He's not dead, but here we go.
Yo, bro, you alive? Yo, bro. Yo, bro. Got flies in his mouth. He's alive, though. He's breathing.
Now look, we're gonna get into this because I love this one. I heard about it before, but I never really had the book to really get into it. But this is a hellified thing. But look, that one guy that laying down, we got to understand the people we're dealing with. They're not all there. They are not all there. Mentally speaking, emotionally speaking, physically speaking, and spiritually speaking. They're dead. They're the walking dead. You can't help but to see it. You can't help but to feel it. And trying to talk to them like talking to a fucking brick wall. You cannot talk to a brick wall unless you're crazy. And why go around the circles? If that ain't the dumbest shit in the world, I don't know what is, Brother Willie. And to be honest with you, it's high time to leave these people where they are. And we can just go on about our business because I'm glad to see that black folks are uniting. But when I was on Brother Muhammad's show, uh, I would tell him there's going to be something that's going to happen that's going to unite black folks. I couldn't really put a finger on it per se. You know what I mean? Excuse my itching, but I got something. But I told them there was going to be something that's going to really ignite the unification of black folks worldwide, and not only that worldwide, but in America. And that has happened, and it's getting to be more stronger and stronger and stronger. The disrespect is ended. That's what it is. With the goddamn Korean shop, chink shop, Jap shop, nail salon, hair salon, whatever the fuck it is, we ain't going. We're going to our own. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is time to build our own. There was a time in Black Wall Street where the dollar didn't leave until 36 times. It went around the block 36 times, or the community 36 times before it left. White community, less than one. So this integration is not for us. And the more I am hearing about the boycott and saying the effects of that, it's time. I can guarantee you, Brother Willie, once we get Black Wall Street up and running and success is ours, it's over. I can guarantee you ain't no motherfucking white boy or boys gonna show up with guns talking about we're gonna burn this motherfucker down. Man, they getting shot right on the spot. They're gonna go see their white daddy in the sky. I swear to God, man, we're done with this shit. So I wanted to go into this one, and please pay attention, Brother Willie. It's really, really, really good. Hold on, let me start it from the beginning.
White Explorer actually wrote about this in 1818. Now, in 1818, explorer Thomas Bowditch goes to the Asante Kingdom. Now, the Asante Kingdom is located two-story homes with flushable toilets on the second story, half baths, and a waste and sanitation system that literally blew his mind. He wrote like 2-3 pages on this. That's how surprised he was. Not by the fact that it was Africans doing this. That was partly part of it. But the fact that it even existed in the first place. Now, it wasn't until like the 1850s and 60s when Europeans started using flushable toilets regularly and started having a regular waste and sanitation system. And now this book is a little weird too, and I might talk about this in another video. But this book was actually written under the guise of being an informational book about the Asante Kingdom. But it was actually a playbook on how to colonize the Asante Kingdom. Lewinsky started to learn something. While he was pretending to be nice with the Asante Kingdom to get all of this information to be able to take over the Asante Kingdom, he also collected all of these items. He has the largest and oldest collection of Asante items from that time. Look at this. Look at all this. Look at them sandals from 1817. He was so perplexed about this whole waste management system that he even drew pictures in detail and painted them. I'll show some of the pictures while I read this mess that he wrote. What surprised me most, and is not the least of the many circumstances deciding their great superiority over the generality of Negroes, was the discovery that every house had its cloaca, toilet, besides the common ones for the lower orders without the town, the public restrooms. They were generally situated under a small archway in the most retired angle of the building, the guest bathroom, but not unfrequently upstairs, the upstairs bathroom, within a separate room like a small closet, where the large hollow pillar also assists to support the upper story, the two-story house. The holes were of a small circumference, the pipes, but dug to a surprising depth, and boiling water is daily poured down, which effectually prevents the least offense. The rubbish and offal of each house was burnt every morning, waste management, at the back of the street, and they were as nice and cleanly in their dwellings as in their persons. This Bowditch's book provided one of the earliest, if not the earliest, account of how African people were living before European colonization for centuries. And you want to know what happened to him? Less than 5 years after he lied to the Asante people, lied to the Asante king, pretended that they were going to be trade, he passed the information on to his superiors, who used that information to take over the Asante kingdom. He thought that he provided that information that would give him leverage for better pay and a better position. They said no. He decided that he was going to move to Africa and get his fortunes and terrorize the African people. That same year that he decided to move to Africa, he died from a fever, leaving his wife and children destitute. Hope you learned something new.
Well, I tell you, yeah, you do. And here you got the per capita people who are talking about per capita. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, brother. They really don't. And here you got the brother who is starting, very famous guy from what I'm reading, Dr. Dwayne Edward, first two U.S. black-owned footwear factory. So we're done with that one. But one of the things that we got to realize, hey, brother, Black, you here, man? I didn't think you're gonna show up. What's going on, man?
Yeah, man. I've been here about 5 minutes, man.
Oh, okay. Well,
so that's why you don't see me. You don't call me Black for nothing.
You're a phantom of the opera.
How you doing today, brother?
Yeah, we're good. Oh, hold on. Let me see what Brother Willie was saying. He said we need to have our own military to protect what we build, brother. You got that right, man.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's going to happen, Brother Willie? You might want to step in on this one. Brother Willie is saying we need to have our own military to protect what we build. Brother Isaiah, hold on, let me put that on the screen. What happened was, Brother Willie, there was a black guy who became a sheriff in Mississippi. I forget what part. And all of the white folks was upset and you know, doing what white folks do. They don't want to see no nigga over them, you know what I mean? So what he did was, to make a long story short, he brought in his best Vietnam Betty, Korean War Betty, Buddy, not Betty, Buddy, and they took it to him. The FBI never brought any charges, and they were killing white folks left and right, the KKK. A lot of them showed up face first, face down, face up in the water, being hung from trees. The brother did not fuck around, man. And this is what we got to understand. These people are not like you and I. They're not like you and I. And to be honest with you, the best way to get our own military, take over this motherfucker, because America belongs to us. It don't belong to white folk. Because they done fucked it up. You know what I mean? And the concept of Congress and Senate, the Constitution, all of the shit, I'm not giving that shit up for these motherfuckers. They done fucked it up too much, too soon, too fast. So what's going to happen, and what I am seeing, and I'm just me, is that black folk gonna take over America. Just like
Black
we're gonna
folk will
take
take
over.
over the world.
Yeah, we're gonna take over the world. But the idea is that white folks can't see it because they're so painted. They painted themselves into the corner, Brother Willie, that they can't see their own destruction. Pride comes before the fall. And when we see, excuse me, when we see, excuse me, damn, when we see the United States of Africa formed now, it's not forming, it's formed. That entity itself, along with the Islamic NATO that is forming or has formed, not forming, you're going to see a great shift in all of this shit because, to be honest with you, Africa doesn't need military bases all over the motherfucking place like white folks did with America. The BRICS, British, what is it?
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
Right. So all of these places are united. If you attack one, you're attacking all of them. So the very idea that white folks think they're going to be in control forever, that's dead and gone. The United States military depends on Africa getting 80% of what it needs to keep it going.
Right.
And the idea that Russia is going to be on the side of white folks, I don't think so. They know what's up. And
Russians are not considered white like Western Europeans are because they're mixed between Caucasians
and niggas.
No, and Asians.
And Asian. Well, that's niggas for you. That's niggas.
Oh, okay. If you want to say it.
The original Asians were black, and the original Europeans were black. So it's black.
Mm-hmm.
The people who ruled and controlled Russia from the beginning were black.
Yeah.
You know, it all comes out. It all comes out. But yeah, Brother Willie, we're on a come up like a motherfucker. It ain't gonna be long. I'm like I was telling Brother Muhammad, by the end of 26, it's over. It's over now, but the stranglehold on the world economically, politically, spiritually, emotionally, physically speaking, is just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger for black folks. And white folks know this. And white folks know this. That's not no goddamn secret. And all of the military hardware, software advances did not come from white folks. It came from black folks working in the military industrial complex. Black folk created the atomic bomb, nuclear bomb. So I was before you came on, man. I was talking about the X-Files and what that is. You might be able to see it, but man, white folks are done, man. They just hanging on by a thread. And I don't even think of a thread. They just hanging on a wing and a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we talked about, like I always say, the white folks are quick to say, hold on. The white folks are quick to say, well, I didn't have any slaves, and were you a slave, Isaiah? You didn't suffer. Why should I be paying for it? Man, fuck you, bitch. You know, get that weak ass goddamn argument up out of here. The sins of the mother and father are visited upon their children. Period. They shut the fuck up then. Like, what bitch, please. Just be like that. Don't be no Johnny come lately trying to kumbaya moment. They don't understand that shit. They actually believe that you're a weak motherfucker. They actually believe. Hold on. Oh, how did I? They actually believe that if you say that shit or say something more watered down, they got you. Oh, this nigga, well, we just gonna play him. We know the deal. He don't really know what's going on. He don't really know that he the chosen people of God. He the chosen people of the land. He the chosen people of the Bible. He the chosen people of blah 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 blah. in that motherfucking discussion. You see, because you can wrap all that up in one thing. I'm your motherfucking daddy, bitch. Shut the fuck up. I am that I am, bitch. This is how we gonna do this shit. See, because I can tell you, they don't want me on their show. They don't want you on their show. Cause we're gonna light their motherfucking asses up, man. You know what I mean? So I'm not here to play. If you come and watch this show, you're gonna walk away with a lot of shit. A lot of shit. So I wasn't bothering you this week in order to send it to you because we talked about this before. Last week we covered Carmelo Anthony, but we're gonna cover what we were talking about before that. We were going to cover last Saturday, and the event of the earthquake in Venezuela.
I was waiting for you to bring that up because that's you called it. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, we called it. So I don't believe. We're not playing, and we're very much on point in regard to what's happening because we had an earthquake here in the Dominican Republic of 5.0 that hit Santo Domingo, but it hit the southern part of the Dominican Republic, the Punta Cana. That goes up. So there was a guy. I don't want to play the video because he's speaking in Spanish because you and I will understand that, but the people who would see this show will not be able to understand it, not unless they speak Spanish. But he's saying that we're going to have a big one, like a 7.5 to 8.0. And the Richter scale, if I'm not mistaken, goes up to 9.5. So this one that hit Venezuela, 7.2, 7.5, that's like 260 nuclear bombs. It's equal to it. And
the infrastructure there isn't built for. They didn't hurricane proof their infrastructure because one hasn't hit in over 100 years.
Yeah, no. What I heard now, this is you're right. But what I heard from 1972 on, they had it within their framework, within their constitution, within their law, to make all buildings more earthquake proof. Or whatever, or more earthquake resistant, and they never did it.
Right.
And they were keeping the money. Now look at them. You reap what you sow, motherfucker. The only thing that I can say is that because I don't like Argentina. The way that they treated our people. Oh, nah, there you go.
Yeah.
Man, fuck Argentina. Fuck all them motherfuckers. I'm not high. I don't like hiding shit. Butter Willie and Black. It just doesn't pay. No, it's never what you say is how you say it. Never what you do, how you do it. But sometimes you just gotta cuss a motherfucker out and let them know what the deal is. I'm like Vito Corleone. I ain't gonna forget, motherfucker. You think you're all right. You think you're 90 years old and you done escaped the wrath of killing my mother and family and brother. But I remember, and I'm going to get your ass.
And before we pivot, let me ask you a question. What made you say that last week and it wound up happening? What made you, where did you get that information from, or did you just divinate?
Oh, no. I got that from today because I was just perusing the earthquake story.
Hold on. That's not what I'm asking you. Last week when I came in, that's what you were talking about, the earthquakes and how we're gonna have a lot of seismic activity everywhere. What gave you the did you get it from source, from yourself, from
okay, no. I predicted that in my first book called Rich Man, Poor Man, that dealt with the stock market reaching 20,000 by 2000, and it did. I wrote that book back in the early 90s, man. that really hit the nail on the head. It predicted the repealing of the Glass-Steagall Act and a whole lot of other things. But that was one of the things that brought up because I heard about it, and back there in the '90s, you don't really very little internet activity, and the boom of computer was starting and all that other stuff. But yeah, it comes from that. But now, back then, even on Brother Muhammad show, I was saying it's not a matter of if it would happen; it's a matter of when it would happen. And I told him, Brother Muhammad, on his show, that it's going to happen by the year 26, if not 30. And the stock market crash in 1929 is going to happen in 2029 again. So history repeats itself. And so the last time that the earthquake hit big time was along the Madrid fault was 1812, and in California 1916, I think, somewhere around there. It did 50,000 square mile damage in 1916 in California along the San Andreas fault. And there's another fault, and the one that did the most damage, but there was nothing on it. You know what I mean? No houses, no buildings, and all that. In 1812, with the Madrid fault, it did 1 million square miles of damage.
Is
Now,
that
when
the
that
mud
happened,
flood occurred?
huh?
Is that when the mud flood occurred on the Mississippi?
Yeah, it's gonna be a map of the Madrid fault that going from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to Chicago and what that looks like. So
Right, the new
you're gonna,
Madrid. Yeah, that's the new
yeah,
Madrid. Yeah.
right. You're gonna see a map of that and the fallout areas of where the impact gonna be really devastating. And we're not even talking about what's the name of that mountain? The volcanic mountain in
You talking
Seattle,
about Yellowstone? Oh, you talking about Mount Rainier?
or something like that. No.
Yeah.
There's another one called in Seattle,
Hold on. I'm gonna get it.
a volcano. Yeah.
Go ahead, keep talking. I'll get it.
Yeah, okay. So that one is going to blow out too, man, and it's going to be ash up to the fucking eyeballs and beyond. So we're looking at about minimally, about 10 million people who are going to die in America. Now imagine if that earthquake happened in California,
Mount
the
St.
Madrid fault,
Helens.
Mount St. Helens. There you go. The Madrid fault and the Mount St. Helens blowing. That's 1, 2, 3. America is done. Not out.
Oh no, we don't even gotta worry. Hold on. We don't even gotta worry
Yeah.
about Mount St. Helens. Yellowstone, you know that the Yellowstone blew a 20-foot crater a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
You hear about that?
And we're not even talking about that.
Yep.
If,
If
what do you
that
say?
one blows, half the United States is gone.
Yeah.
From all the ash is gonna be like a Carrington event. All the ash is
Right.
gonna invade the air, and people ain't gonna be able to breathe. So anybody with asthma, bronchitis, or anything that involves you having to breathe, if you
Right.
live, you ain't gonna be happy after the fact.
Right.
Anybody with emphysema, any of those kind of diseases, that stunt your breathing.
Right.
Not to mention other people, the elderly who are weak, the young children whose lungs can't take that. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna change.
So we got the Madrid fault, the San Andreas fault, Mount St. Helens, and what else? The park.
The Yellowstone caldera.
Okay. We got 4 things. Just imagine 2 of those things. It's gonna be 2 or more, but just 2 of those motherfuckers. Just the Madrid fault doing 1 million square miles of damage again. And we know that there are 15 nuclear power plants sitting right on that motherfucker or not that far away. So we're looking at nuclear fallout, and we already had fallouts, and the thing that happened in Japan with the nuclear fallout of that nuclear site. It happened here in America, but they're not talking about it. Nuclear waste and water is infiltrating our water system throughout Florida and the Northeast, going back damn near to Chicago. Not that far, but in that local area. And people don't fucking know. And that's the part of the government that the government don't want you to know. And that's a damn shame. So as we move forward, I want people to know and understand, Brother Willie, that this is not a game. We are in some shit. And the amount of money that this bitch ass orange motherfucker wasted fighting for Israel and against Iran, that could have went toward the infrastructure of America. The bridges, highways, byways, the veterans, the normal citizens, all that shit. And to be honest with you, man, we're not done, but we're done. You know what I mean? We're not gonna get knocked out, because I believe the spirit of America is still prevalent and imminent and constant, but it's gonna test our spirit. And to be honest with you, the people who are gonna save America are black folk, not white folks. They weaker than a motherfucker. They gonna fold up like a goddamn lawn chair, like they always do, because they weak-minded and don't know what the fuck they're doing.
And speaking of which, remember the dude that hit the people in the Alabama beatdown with a chair?
Oh yeah.
They called him the chairman.
Right.
They called him the chairman, and they called the guy that jumped into the water to swim to the beach.
Right.
They called him C Murder.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. But you know, white folks don't understand, man. They will never understand the circle of life and how important it is to be a part of the circle of life and what that means and how that means and what that means and the importance of being a part of that circle and the spirituality of life. They just don't have it, and they ain't gonna never have it. And this is why I say that black folks around the world, if you want to consider brown skin folks, I'm brown skin, I'm black. We just gonna take it over because white folks done fucked up. They know they done fucked up, and they know they got a price to pay, and they're paying it, and it's just gonna get worse for them, and it's gonna get better for us because we are the ones who are going to bring balance back to Earth. My eye. So, with that being said, man, you want to elaborate a little bit more before we move on?
Not really. Like we said last week, along with the solar flares.
Yeah, bring it back. Let's talk about that because I've seen that today where it's getting more intense because white folks out there getting burnt up in the sun.
Yeah,
Man, they turn red like a motherfucker.
every day. And what I'm saying is, along with that comes the Schumann resonance.
Okay.
Okay, so with the with the solar activity hitting the Earth at a regular basis, and the Schumann resonance, which could be called akin to the heartbeat of the Earth, the frequency is running out for them.
Right.
That's why they have an expiry date on their back.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they're like milk.
Right.
You know, once it's in the fridge for a week, you got to start before you pour into your cereal or your tea or coffee. You got to pour a little in your hand to test it out to make sure it ain't curdled yet.
Okay.
So
Right.
that's where they are as we speak. So
Right.
no matter how you look at it, you know, and going back to what Brother Willie said as far as the military, we could never form a military to beat them because we don't have the diabolical mind that they have. When I say that,
I disagree with that. Yes, we do.
Hold on,
Because that's the
You're not,
very reason.
I gotta finish,
Oh,
but
go
if
ahead,
you
go
didn't
ahead, go
let
ahead,
me
go ahead.
finish, then you wouldn't hear why I'm saying that.
Okay, go ahead.
Because how long is it going to take? There's no the only country in Africa that builds any arms is South Africa, and the Israelis who make the Desert Eagles over there, the 50 caliber guns.
Right,
So what I'm saying is you can't have a military of traditional, what we know is traditional weapons, guns, knives, bombs, blah blah blah. It would have
right,
to be a spiritual army because they can't beat us there. They don't even have a soul. And if you read the
right,
book called Urugu, then you know what I'm talking about. They don't have a soul. So you beat them in
right,
the spiritual realm. That's where you got to beat them. You can't beat them with a physical because we don't have the mind. If Africans built weapons, how are they going to beat people who've been manufacturing weapons for at least the last 200 years? Physical. I'm talking about physical weapons now.
right, right.
You can't do it. So when I say that, that's why I say you gotta let me finish because I'm not saying we shouldn't form a military, but we need to deal with them in the spirit because that's where it's at.
Okay.
And I'm
Well, I can go. Yeah, I can go with that one.
right. And I knew you
But
would.
huh?
And I knew you would.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Or I felt that.
Let me say one more thing before you take it, and then we go to
Okay.
the next.
Okay.
Remember when Wesley Snipes was jailed for tax evasion?
Okay.
Some years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. He didn't do a
Right.
long bid, maybe 3-4 years. It was said that they didn't really prosecute him for that. The reason why it was said that he was prosecuted, you know, he's a martial arts expert, right?
Right. Right.
He wanted to open a school in suburban Atlanta to teach black young men how to be military arts, martial arts, militant stuff.
Right.
And right when he was, because after Blade, he was already, if he wasn't a billionaire, he was in the hundreds of millions at that point.
Right. Right.
And we know he was steady climbing. And after that, he kind of fell off the lamp. And of course, he made Blade 3 because that was his, when he came out, he made Blade 3. But the point I'm making is they will never allow you to have that much power. The same thing they did to Dr. York in suburban Atlanta again, with
Okay.
his which is world famous. So we don't got to get into what happened and so on. Whether you agree with him or not is neither here nor there. So when you try to form those kind of militant situations, they're going to come in and get you. So this is why I say we got to be on a spiritual level when it comes to this war stuff. And with that, you can go now.
Okay. Well, I agree 100%. But let me put this in a little bit of salt and pepper into this. Before they got taken down on YouTube, you had SABN. What was it? African Breaking News. So I did a lot of my show based on what were presented with them, and then they took it down. So what they were covering is that Traore, who is or will be the first president of the United States of Africa, had gotten it to the point where these elite fighters, man, the IDF, the MI6 out of Britain, and the Navy SEALs have nothing on them. Nothing. And they're using spiritual system of Africa to beat anybody and everybody. That means, and if you remember, Ethiopia was using lions and bees and training them to fight their enemies. So here we go. It's not like it's something new. Hold on. it's nothing new, but it's something old that is new again. And from what I can gather, even though we're not psychologically broken, spiritually broken, we can be deadly. And we have been deadly with these fucking animals. In Egypt, the queen killed these motherfuckers and got them out of Egypt. She said, if you bring your fucking, and I'm just ad-libbing, if you bring your fucking ass back here again, we're going to roll your motherfucking heads off your shoulder. And she was not playing. This shit happened again in Greece and Rome, the same shit. And now here we go, the third time after 1492, and the evolution of the Industrial Revolution brought about all of these weapons. They did not create the fire stick. We did, or the gun. We did. So white folks, as we know them, can be very, motherfucker go somewhere else. Can be very honest and wondrous and vindictive to the point of self-destruction. This is what we're seeing with these motherfuckers. They are not as smart as a lot of people would want them, believe them to be. It is the narrative of white supremacy that is all up in the ass of these fucking Japanese and Chinese, Asian motherfuckers, on black people. When you see black people, praising white folks and don't want to insult them and going along with the narrative of Carmelo Anthony and all this and stop dancing, because they don't know that if they understood their history, Brother Willie, they would know who we are dealing with. We're dealing with fucking animals that don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's it. There's nothing special about these motherfuckers. We taught them the art of war. When they go to these military schools in America, that was based on Hannibal, a black man who created the art of war. When you're talking about the Chinese general, whoever, what's his name? Xu Xingzhu, what is it? Remember yeah, Sun Tzu, something. Yeah.
Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. Genghis Khan was a warrior.
Okay. Even that. So when you look at it, everything is black. So they're not who they pretend to be. Let me put it that way. Because they're nothing but a bunch of fools and charlatans and children trapped up in an adult body. So do you want to expand on that, or you want to get going to the next one?
On to the next, my brother.
Okay. So what we were talking about is what is happening, not what is going to happen, what is happening, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So we're going to cover this one. We're going to let it run all the way through. A 9.0 is coming for the West Coast. That is the San Andreas Fault, and that's not the worst part. I'll be right back.
Magnitude 9 earthquake is coming for the west coast of the United States. Off the Pacific Northwest, a 700-mile fault called Cascadia has been locked and silent for 325 years, quietly storing the energy for the largest disaster in American history. But the shaking is only the trigger. What it sets off, a near-instant fuel spill, a river on fire, and a toxic cloud over neighborhoods that cannot evacuate, may kill more people than the quake. Here is the part of the catastrophe almost no one is talking about. There is a fault off the western edge of the United States that has been almost completely silent for the entire span of recorded American history, and that silence is exactly what makes it so dangerous. It is called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, and it runs for roughly 700 miles offshore, from Northern California up through Oregon and Washington, and into British Columbia. Along that whole boundary, a slab of ocean floor called the Juan de Fuca Plate, sliding underneath the much larger North American. Right now, the two are stuck. They are locked together, grinding against each other so slowly that almost nothing happens at the surface. And all the while, the pressure between them keeps building. That is the part most people get wrong about Cascadia. A fault that produces small earthquakes all the time is a fault that is releasing its stress in manageable pieces. Cascadia does the opposite. It stays quiet for centuries, storing energy the entire time, and then it lets all of it go at once. When that finally happens, scientists expect an earthquake somewhere in the high 8s to low 9s on the magnitude scale. That is not a large earthquake. That is the largest earthquake the modern United States has ever faced. The kind of event hazard experts describe as the single biggest natural disaster in the country's history. The numbers attached to that scenario have been grim for a long time. The long-standing estimate is more than 30,000 dead and more than $81 billion in damage, which would make it the costliest natural disaster the country has ever absorbed. And here is where this story turns, because New Hazards research is now saying those numbers may understate the danger. The shaking and the tsunami, the two things everyone pictures when they imagine the big one, may not be the deadliest part of a Cascadia rupture. The deadliest part may be everything the quake sets in motion in the minutes, hours, and months that follow. That is what we're going to walk through today, piece by piece, and it is worse than the headline number suggests. To understand why the aftermath is so dangerous, we first have to understand the shaking itself, because it is unlike anything most Americans have experienced. Full Cascadia rupture would not shake the ground for a few seconds. It would shake it for 3 to 6 minutes. Along the coast nearest the fault, the ground acceleration could exceed 1 g, which is enough force to throw cars and people into the air rather than just rattle them. Picture the most violent motion you can imagine, and then picture it continuing long past the point where you would expect it to stop. That duration is its own form of destruction, because buildings that might survive 10 seconds of shaking begin to fail and the shaking will not end. It helps to understand what a magnitude in the low 9s actually means, because the scale hides the violence inside a single small number. The magnitude scale is logarithmic, so each whole step up represents roughly 32 times more energy released than the step below it. Magnitude 9 does not release a little more energy than a magnitude 8. It releases on the order of 30 times as much. And it does so by tearing along a far longer stretch of fault. That is the reason the shaking lasts for minutes instead of seconds. The fault is not failing at a single point. It is unzipping along hundreds of miles, and every mile of that tear pumps fresh energy into the ground, while the waves from the previous miles are still arriving. The motion overlaps and reinforces itself, and engineers will tell you that this duration, not just the peak force, is what brings the largest structures down. The inland cities tell a different version of the same problem. Portland and Seattle sit far enough from the fault that the shaking reaches them somewhat weaker. They hold far more people, far more old, vulnerable buildings and infrastructure. Much of what those cities are built from was put up before modern seismic codes existed. A great deal of it predates the scientific acceptance of plate tectonics itself, meaning it was designed by people who did not yet know this fault could do what it is about to do. When that shaking hits, the region's lifelines are expected to fail more or less together. Bridges, water systems, the electrical grid, natural gas lines, fuel pipelines, rail, ports, and airports were largely not built to tolerate this magnitude of motion. Planners expect a blackout across the entire impact zone, and some estimates put the power outage at 6 to 12 months. Hold on to that timeline, because a region without power, without water, and without working roads is a region that cannot respond to what comes next. And what comes next is the real subject of this report. The shaking is only the trigger. The catastrophe it pulls the trigger on is sitting on the banks of a river just outside downtown Portland. There is a place along the Willamette River, only a couple of miles from the center of Portland, where almost all of Oregon's fuel passes through a single narrow corridor. It is called the Critical Energy Infrastructure Hub, and it is one of the most important, most fragile points in the entire region. Roughly 90% of the state's liquid fuel moves through this hub. Jet fuel, gasoline, diesel, and lubricants all flow through it on their way to the rest of Oregon. It is, in effect, the fuel tank for an entire state, and it is parked in the worst possible spot. The tanks themselves are a problem before the ground even moves. Many of the large petroleum storage tanks at the hub were built to seismic standards that we now know are insufficient. and a significant share of them went up before 1970. They were engineered for a world that did not believe Cascadia could produce a magnitude 9. That alone would be concerning. The deeper issue is not the tanks. It is what they are standing on. This is the moment where the story stops being about an earthquake and starts being about a chemistry experiment running at the scale of a city. Because the hub does not sit on bedrock. It sits on loose, sandy, water-saturated soil along a riverbank, and that kind of ground behaves in a very specific and very dangerous way when you shake it hard enough for long enough. Understanding that behavior is the key to understanding why the aftermath of this quake may kill more people than the quake. There is a process called liquefaction, and it is one of the most counterintuitive things the Earth can do. When loose, waterlogged soil is subjected to strong, sustained shaking, the grains lose contact with one another and the whole mass temporarily starts to behave like a liquid. Solid ground becomes something closer to quicksand. Liquid ground cannot hold up what is built on it or buried in it. Buildings tear apart. Buried pipelines and tanks can actually float upward out of the soil, pushed up like a beach ball held underwater and then released. You can see liquefaction in smaller earthquakes around the world, and the footage is always unsettling. Streets ripple like fabric. Manhole covers and buried tanks push up through the pavement. Heavy buildings tip over sideways while staying almost perfectly intact, because the ground underneath simply stopped behaving like a solid. In a magnitude 9 that lasts several minutes, that process would not be a localized curiosity affecting a building here and there. It would happen across whole districts at once, along the same riverbank the region chose to concentrate.
Say what out? I didn't hear you.
Sound is it's cracking.
Oh, it's scratching?
You are too
Okay.
now. It's probably going to sign me out, and I got to come back in. I don't know if it's me or you, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, yeah. I'm gonna put mine on the mute. So put yours on mute as we play. I guess that's not gonna fuck with it. But let's continue.
It's fuel. The soil beneath the critical energy infrastructure hub is close to a textbook example of the material most prone to liquefying, and the length of a Cascadia rupture is far more than enough to set it off. Now put the fuel tanks of the critical energy infrastructure hub on top of that liquefying ground for 3 to 6 minutes. The tanks are shaken violently from the outside while the fuel inside them sloshes back and forth with enough force to rupture the walls directly. Some tanks fail from the ground, giving way beneath them. Others fail from the liquid hammering them. The combined result, according to hazards modeling, is that roughly half of all the stored material at the hub could spill out. It is worth pausing on the scale of that, because half of the hub's contents is not a leak. It is a release comparable in volume to the Deepwater Horizon disaster, the catastrophe that fouled the Gulf of Mexico for months. The difference is the speed. Deepwater Horizon unfolded over months. This would happen in minutes, all at once, into a river that runs through a major American city. That is the first link in the chain, and every link after it makes the situation worse. The fuel does not simply sit there. It moves, and where it moves, it burns. Once that fuel spills, gravity and the river take over. Petroleum flows into the Willamette and begins traveling downstream, spreading across the surface of the water and toward the surrounding terrain. A spill of that size is not a stain on the river. It is a moving sheet of flammable liquid threading through a city that has just lost its power, its water pressure, and its ability to move fire crews through collapsed and liquefied streets. All it needs is a spark. And in the chaos of a megaquake aftermath, with downed electrical lines and ruptured gas mains everywhere, a spark is close to guaranteed. The geography is what makes this so hard to contain. The Willamette flows north through the center of Portland before it joins the Columbia, which means a spill at the hub sits upstream of homes, parks, and bridges, rather than safely downstream of them. Burning fuel on moving water does not stay in one place where crews could surround it. It rides the current, carrying the fire front along the banks as it travels, and it can pool against bridge pilings and floating debris in ways that concentrate the flames. In an ordinary fire, responders fall back on hydrants, pumps, and a working road network to move their equipment. In this scenario, every one of those tools has been stripped away in the same instant, by the same earthquake that caused the spill. When it ignites, the fire has somewhere to go. One of the places it can reach is Forest Park, the roughly 5,200-acre stretch of woodland on Portland's western edge, one of the largest urban forests anywhere in the country. A fire spreading through that terrain could threaten on the order of 70,000 people. And the firefighters, who would normally stand between those people and the flames, are not coming, because they are trapped in the same broken city as everyone else, with no water in the hydrants and no clear roads to drive. This is the inversion at the center of today's story. and it is not a new idea in the history of American disasters.
Hold on.
When the Great Earthquake struck San Francisco in 1906, it was not the shaking that killed most of the roughly 3,000 people who died. It was the fire that followed, burning through a city that could not fight back. More than a century later, the same logic is waiting on the banks of the Willamette, except the fuel load is industrial and the spill is near instant. The earthquake is the match. The hub is the gasoline. And even the fire is not the end of it, because some of what is stored along that river does not burn. It poisons the air.
That's some cold shit.
There is more
Poison the
than
air.
petroleum stored in that industrial corridor, and this is the part of the cascade that gives the day its darkest scenario. The hub and the facilities around it.
Man, now look at that. Anhydrous ammonia, chlorine gas, the spill of the whatever that's in it, the oil, the fuel, and the water. You know, millions of people are going to die all up and down and around California, going into Seattle and Portland, Oregon. Millions of people are going to be suffering, dying rapidly, fast, or dying very slowly. This is not a motherfucking joke, cuz.
Anhydrous ammonia, chlorine gas, and a long list of other chemicals that turn into toxic inhalation hazards the moment they are released. When the tanks fail, those substances do not flow downhill like fuel. They rise into the air as a cloud, and then they go wherever the wind takes them. A recent hazards report tried to put numbers on this by modeling just 4 of the highest risk facilities under realistic wind conditions. Under the worst plausible scenario, where stagnant summer air keeps the gas from dispersing and lets it linger low over populated ground, more than 2,500 people could die from toxic exposure alone, with hundreds of thousands more affected. Neighborhoods like Linton and the people living up in the hills near Forest Park sit in especially deadly positions, because the same collapsed roads and ruined infrastructure that trap the firefighters also trap the residents trying to flee. There is, in the worst version of this, no clear way out. And remember, that estimate came from modeling only 4 facilities. The same report identified roughly 70 high-risk sites, most of them sitting on the same liquefiable soil, and that is only in the Portland area. Comparable industrial risks exist throughout the Pacific Northwest. Researchers also flagged something that should bother all of us, which is that basic information about exactly what is stored at these sites and in what quantities is incomplete. You cannot fully plan for a hazard you have not fully measured, and that gap in the data quietly raises the ceiling on how bad this could get. So when you stack it all together, shaking, the half-state's worth of fuel spilling into a river, the fire reaching an urban forest, a toxic cloud settling over neighborhoods that cannot evacuate, you start to see why scientists now say the quake itself may be the least of it. But to understand why this threat is not hypothetical, you have to go back 325 years, to a wave that was written down on the other side of the world. It would be easy to file all of this under things that might happen someday, except that we know, with remarkable precision, that it has happened before. The last time the full Cascadia fault ruptured, it was about 9 o'clock at night, January 26th, in the year 1700, which is 325 years ago. We can state that date and that hour with confidence, and the way we know it is one of the most extraordinary pieces of detective work in all of Earth science. There was no one along the Pacific Northwest coast writing down precise timestamps in 1700. But there were careful record keepers in Japan, and they documented something strange. A tsunami came ashore in their coastal villages and flooded them, and yet no one in Japan had felt an earthquake beforehand. They called it an orphan tsunami, a wave with no parent quake that anyone nearby could feel. Centuries later, scientists worked backward from those Japanese records, calculated how long a wave would take to cross the entire Pacific Ocean, and traced it to its source on the Cascadia Fault. Confirmed it with the physical evidence on the American side, where whole forests of cedar trees were drowned in salt water when the coast dropped during the quake. Those bare, dead trunks, the ghost forests, still stand in places along the coast, and the rings in their wood date their death to the winter of 1699 into 1700. Here is why the history matters so much to everything we have just described. The fault does not run on a neat schedule, but it does run on a multi-century rhythm. Over the past 10,000 years, paleoseismic records show more than 40 major earthquakes along Cascadia, with about 10 of them in the last 7,000 years exceeding magnitude 8.5. 325 years now elapsed since the last full rupture. The region is well within the window for the next one. Scientists put the odds at roughly 1 in 3 for a Cascadia earthquake in the next 50 years. and around 15% for a full margin event, the really big one, in that same span. So the cascade we have been describing, the spill and the fire and the toxic cloud, is not a fantasy. It is a near certainty waiting on a fault that is statistically overdue, in a region that has built its most dangerous infrastructure as if the clock did not exist. There is one more amplifier.
Hold on.
And it works on a time. Scale even longer than the fire and the fuel, because it permanently rewrites.
Hold on.
That's the coastline. For thousands of years, the same plate collision that loads the Cascadia Fault has also been slowly pushing the edge of North America upward. That gradual uplift has, until now, partly canceled out the sea level rise that has been creeping up the coast. The land has been rising just enough to stay ahead of the water. When the earthquake comes, that arrangement reverses in an instant. The stored uplift releases, and the coastal land can suddenly drop, or subside, by as much as 6 feet. Think about what that means in practice. A stretch of coast that took centuries of slow geological work to lift up can fall by the equivalent of a few hundred years of sea level rise in the span of a few minutes. Land that was dry in the morning is below the new waterline by the afternoon, and it does not come back. Modeling indicates that floodplains across the region could expand by up to 115 square miles, permanently, which would roughly double the number of people, buildings, and roads exposed to flooding. What makes subsidence especially cruel is that it stays invisible until it is permanent. The shaking ends, the survivors begin to take stock, and the water simply does not retreat the way a tsunami's water eventually does, because the land itself is now lower than it was that morning. Estuaries push inland. Roads that were the only way in and out of small coastal towns sit under the new tide line. Wastewater treatment plants, which are almost always built on low ground beside the water, are among the first things to flood, which sharpens the public health crisis, already building in a region with no power and no clean water. The coastline that emerges in the weeks after the quake is not the one anyone planned around, and it is the one the region will be forced to live with for generations. And this is where the threat compounds with the slower disaster of our era. If the earthquake strikes later this century, after climate-driven sea level rise has already pushed the water higher and enlarged the floodplains, then the sudden 6-foot drop lands on top of that, potentially tripling the flood exposure instead of doubling it. This is the same pattern we keep returning to today. A natural hazard meets a man-made one, and the two multiply each other, just as the faults shaking met the industrial hub and turned an earthquake into a fire and a poison cloud. The subsidence takes the same logic and stretches it into the permanent future, redrawing the map of where it is safe to live long after the shaking has stopped. So where does all of this leave the Pacific Northwest, and what should you actually take from it? The honest summary is that the Cascadia megaquake is coming, that it will be the largest disaster in American history when it does, and that the part of it we have built ourselves, the fuel hub on liquefiable soil, may end up being deadlier than the natural earthquake that sets it off. By one expert's blunt estimate, the region is roughly 1,000 years behind Japan in its preparedness. Japan learned its lessons the hard way, in events like the 2011 Tohoku disaster. That comparison is also the reason this report does not end in despair, because the most important fact about the second disaster is that it is partly preventable. Fuel tanks built to modern seismic codes can survive this shaking. Bridges, buildings, and pipelines can be retrofitted. The chemical inventories at those 70 high-risk sites can be measured, disclosed, and hardened.
Well, the thing about that, motherfucker, Trump done fucked up a whole lot of money that could have gone towards retrofitting. You see how stupid white folks are, man? They're not thinking. They're only thinking about their own motherfucking selves and their own goddamn pocket.
That requires predicting the quake, which brings up one last point worth stating plainly. You will see claims online that great earthquakes can be forecast or triggered by solar storms, planetary alignments, or weapons like HAARP. The science does not support any of that. Cascadia's clock is driven by the slow convergence of two plates and nothing else, and chasing those theories only distracts from the work that genuinely reduces the risk. It is also worth being honest about the timeline survivors would face, because that timeline is what real preparation is built around. A blackout lasting 6 to 12 months is not an inconvenience to wait out. It is a near total suspension of normal life across an entire region, where fuel cannot be pumped, water cannot be treated, and supplies cannot easily be trucked in over broken roads and failed bridges. Emergency planners now commonly advise people in the impact zone to be ready to be self-sufficient for 2 weeks or longer, rather than the 2 or 3 days most households imagine, and to keep those supplies and a plan that assumes outside help will not arrive quickly. That guidance sounds extreme right up until you remember that help itself will be trapped in the same disaster as everyone it is meant to save. What you should watch for is policy and money, not omens. Watch whether states fund the relocation or rebuilding of fuel hubs off liquefiable ground. Watch whether seismic retrofits get budgets attached to them. And on a personal level, the single highest value thing you can do costs nothing, which is to know the people on your street, because in a region without power for months, your neighbors are your first responders. The mystery of Cascadia was never whether it will rupture. It is whether we will choose to be ready for the part of the catastrophe we created. We will be following that question as it develops, because the fault is patient, and the time to answer it is now. Ahmet?
Wow. You want to step in, bro? Black, you want to step? Oh, okay, hold on. Yeah,
You do that
yeah,
you do that all the time.
right. Yeah.
I
You
was
want to
trying to
step
wave
in?
at you to let you know I was in the background.
Oh,
Listen,
okay, yeah, I see it. Go ahead.
listen. Let me show you something. I'm gonna read something real brief from AI Overview that you haven't
Okay,
mentioned yet. That goes along with everything we already spoke about today.
okay.
AI Overview: a massive 5,000 mile wide plume of Saharan dust is sweeping across the Atlantic and will reach the U.S. Gulf Coast this weekend, meaning today, yesterday, and tomorrow, with the
The
highest
north, what,
concentration.
the East Coast or the West Coast?
I'm going to start again. A massive 5,000 mile wide plume of Saharan dust is sweeping across the Atlantic and will reach the U.S. Gulf Coast
Gulf Coast. Okay,
this weekend, with the highest concentrations moving into Texas on Monday
okay,
and Tuesday.
okay,
This
okay.
phenomenon often extends into July. Now, let me say something to you about that. A guy uh, that I watch his page pretty often. His name is Kalai Amun Ra. He's from Philadelphia. He said that these um, dust storms coming from Africa is bullshit. What's really happening is that the Anunnaki is terraforming the earth with what's called red iron oxide. So I
Okay,
don't know, over the years you've noticed sometimes you look in the sky right before it gets dark and the skies are
right,
red. You remember
right,
that? Some
right,
years ago, you don't see it too much now, but like maybe in the early 2010s, maybe to 2015,
right.
it was constant. So that's what they're saying it is. And with everything we mentioned already and what just came on, and then what I just told you, I can see everything happening as we speak. Remember last week when you told me about when we started the show talking about all these earthquakes, and quite profound that just a week later, not even a week later, this is the main topic that we're talking about.
Right.
Remember, I told you that I believe that there's going to be a big move for the July 4th weekend
Okay.
with a lot of things that you have never seen before happen. So, with all these things happening, and with uh, world governments having to now reconsider some of the things that they're doing as a result of these things, because, like you said a minute ago, a lot of stuff is going to have to, the budget is going to have to go toward disaster relief if some of these things happen and it's mad bedlam out here. How are you going to mitigate it? Now, before you talk, let me just say one more thing, and then I'm gonna let you have it back.
Okay.
One thing that I've always said, especially after the so-called hurricane that went up to Anniston, North Carolina, and destroyed a whole bunch of properties up there in the mountains. That is the
Right.
mountains of North Carolina. That was not a hurricane, or it was a manipulated hurricane, because hurricanes usually just affect the coastal areas and then they die. Yeah,
Right.
so that was crazy because that's 600 miles inland, and it's not on the ocean. It's not on the east coast of North Carolina. Anniston is in the western part of North Carolina in the mountains, in the Smoky Mountains. Okay,
Okay.
now with that said, what I believe should happen, as far as insofar as budgeting, when these type of disasters happen, the nearest towns that didn't get destroyed need to start storing these people, because if the insurance all ran out, certain people don't get their money, where are these people going to live? Especially
Right.
especially in the South, in the summer, when it's like bugs and snakes everywhere and everything is out. You expect these people to stay in the house that's got 3 feet of water in it? You
Right.
don't know what's going to come in there.
Right.
So
No, that ain't gonna happen. Yeah, I can't even imagine the conditions that America is going to be facing, and that people in general, from the poorest to the richest, are going to be facing.
yeah,
Now, they're going to hit everybody. I don't know. You hear about rich folks building,
bunkers.
yeah, bunkers and all this shit. That
Mhm.
shit ain't going to last either, because the earthquake is just going to tear that shit up.
Pretty much.
You know? So I don't know how much. I don't care how much reinforcement they get or they do. That bunker ain't gonna be worth a damn, because your ass is going right towards it. Not, you know what I mean? So it's better to build above it and have your stake and retrofitted it, or resistant material, because the best material that I know of that can at least withstand the earthquake is steel, and how that steel is structured. So,
Right.
you know, but let's get to another one. That's
Oh,
interesting.
before you go, let me say this real quick.
All right,
I don't want anybody listening to us to worry, because if you in the righteous place, and then when I say that, I'm not talking about physical location. I'm talking about if your heart has weight
right,
against the feather and it's lighter than the feather, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Ain't nothing going to touch you.
all right.
Right. So you could be in the middle of a tornado and everybody else get killed but you. You live to tell the story.
That does happen.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next.
Come
All
on.
right.
27, 2026, lots of shaking. Of course, the massive earthquakes back toward Venezuela. Elsewhere, though,
So you can see where this is the Dominican Republic of Haiti. The south is Punta Cana. Then you have Bahia Ibe. You got Santo Domingo. You got Santiago. But we're right here on the northeast, no, southeast coast. No, northeast coast. So we're right here. So if it happens, not if, but when it happens, it'll fuck up all of Punta Cana and the billions of dollars that are being spent in development there. But it's gonna hit us too, but it's not gonna be. It'll be like a 3.5 or 4. But down around here, it'll be 5. I'm predicting 7, like Venezuela, 7 on here. And you got Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is done. Let's continue.
we've had additional quakes. Yesterday itself was rather active. For example, back toward the Dominican Republic, 5.0 in magnitude, about 82 kilometers down. Shaking felt in Puerto Rico. The DR back toward Haiti with this one, but there were multiple solid quakes yesterday back near Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica. Some of the shaking felt. 5.2 in magnitude, about 120 kilometers down or 75 miles down. And then on top of that, we had another one yesterday on our Friday offshore of Antigua and Barbuda, offshore of Guadeloupe, 4.6 in magnitude. That one's shallower, depth around 10 kilometers or about 6 miles down. So quite a bit of activity. A lot of these in the shallow zone, some intermediate. Of course, the shallower they are, the higher chance you have to feel them. And of course, the stronger they are, the higher chance you have to feel them. Any of the ones that are really near 5 in magnitude or higher, if you're out and about, you may feel them. Under 5, if you're kind of minding your business, doing some work, you may not even notice that they do happen. But let me know if you've had any shaking. Even after giving you this video, we may have had some additional quakes. So again, let me know if you have any new quakes or you've been feeling the shaking the last few days. Different types of earthquakes out there, and I monitor this. I have a background in this, and again, I watch out for the different types because some lend themselves to a higher chance of tsunamis. Some are typically stronger than others. The recent ones from yesterday along convergent plate boundaries, so you have plates, one's underneath, one's on top, you get a little lift. Sometimes those do prompt tsunami warnings. So again, watching out for the convergent ones. Sometimes those are some bigger ones. And of course, the massive earthquake that we had, actually 2 of them, the double quakes on Wednesday. And we're thinking of everyone with the rescue efforts still ongoing back through Venezuela, 7.2 in magnitude. Just to take a look back at what we've had over the past week or so, and I'll go even longer in just a second. 39 seconds after that one, it was the 7.5 in magnitude. And again, not only super strong, but very shallow, both of those quakes, and dealing with several aftershocks. And still, while we're a few days after that, more aftershocks are likely with that. This one, or actually both of those double quakes in Venezuela, that was a transform plate boundary, a strike slip quake. So you have 2 plates going past each other. It's like if you were walking by someone and you butt shoulders. That's kind of what happened there, just to kind of give you an example, of course, on such an incredible magnitude, and I mean that in the bad sense of the word, incredible. Just so devastating what has happened in Venezuela, and the scenes are so heartbreaking. This community is no doubt thinking of you, and you can see that love in the comments section. Now, we've had quite a few earthquakes over the last month or so, not just over the last few days. This one, 5.1 in magnitude. This one was back on June 9th, also over toward Costa Rica in Nicaragua. This one, the day before that, June 8th, 6.1 in magnitude, which was the second biggest quake on record in the Gulf. That was felt from Florida back through Cuba over toward Belize. And then on May 30th, just dipping back into late last month near Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, 5.6 in magnitude. That was felt in St. Lucia, St. Vincent the Grenadines, Grenada, Guyana, parts of Venezuela. That was felt. And then a little bit more so ago, this one was back in March 21st. But this was a big one, 6.7 in magnitude. Again, prompted some concerns with how big this was out in the Atlantic, some of those tsunami concerns at that time. So it's not that any of these are necessarily related. I watch out for all of this stuff. I'll continue to monitor that, but I appreciate you letting me know if you have any earthquakes or any shaking. Yeah, please put it in the comments. One thing you have been putting in the comments for sure has been the dust, be it how bad it's been or if it is getting better. We're still watching some of that dust on the move in the short term. This is through the day today where you see the purples. That's where it's thicker, and even some of these, I guess, brighter yellows showing up back through the ABC Islands, Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, parts of Venezuela, Colombia, near Haiti, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. We've had some of the thick dust over the last 24 hours back through Cuba, watching parts of the Bahamas, even South Florida, some of the dust edging its way toward Nicaragua, Honduras, the Bay Islands, Belize, back toward the Yucatan Peninsula, Providencia and San Andres, seeing some of that dust. And then by the time we get into tomorrow, surging back toward the Bay of Campeche, Guatemala, some of the dust over toward Merida. It's going to be thick for tomorrow, and they want lessen some. Look at Texas and other parts of Mexico, even Louisiana, some of that dust trying to work in once we get into Monday, and another batch that is headed toward the Eastern Caribbean. Not as thick as this one, but we've got more dust on the way. With that has been limiting some development, but one spot I'm going to watch just over the next few days near the southeast coast of the United States, there's an old front. I'll show you this in a moment. This old front may try to spin something up. We'll see. But again, a lot of dust and dry air out there. We kind of cycle between big tropical waves and areas of dust this time of year. Now out here as we work our way deeper into the Pacific, just keeping an eye on this spot here. Right now, not seeing much in the way of development. We'll monitor right over the open waters. By the way, if anything were to go to Hawaii, of course, I would be tracking that on this channel. Got you covered as well, watching the Pacific and Eastern Pacific side. Now, a little bit of this green in here, that's actually dust right there. The model picking up on that. So as we go throughout the day, we could still get a couple thunderstorms. Jamaica, Puerto Rico, just naming a few spots. Not widespread, but a couple storms possible. Better chance of a couple showers. St. Lucia, Barbados, south, back through Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname. We'll watch out for some of the rain. Then as we work our way forward here into our Sunday, this is even some of the dust in here. The dust surging across. That's why there's not as much rain as we swing back here. Watching this, here's some rain here, but up here, that's actually some dust. So you can see it there. There's that next surge of dust that will be moving close. Every now and then the model picks up on it. Could see some spotty showers, maybe not Tobago, maybe a little bit more Trinidad. And then watching the dust as we get toward Antigua and Barbuda, that dust will be moving in the next pocket on Monday. And of course, we've got some of that as well over here. And that's why there's not as much activity for rain on the map. Still a chance of some thunderstorms in spots. Keep me posted. But again, not widespread. Now watch this. This is where we'll keep an eye out for some development. Some stronger storms possible later today. Virginia, North Carolina. Then the front just kind of hangs out. And when these fronts hang out, you get a lot of moisture building. Watch what happens over the next couple of days. This is tomorrow. Let's work our way forward into Monday. There's the front getting closer to Bermuda, right back through Georgia and Florida. Little surge of moisture here too. Some of these storms could be big near Mexico City, lifting up to the north. But as we work our way into Monday, this spot here is what we'll be watching. We've got this moisture surge here. But this spot here, we'll see if anything does try to develop, right? May kind of spin back toward Florida or the Gulf. And by the way, in between on Monday, right in through here, we've got some of the dust around that I was mentioning earlier, back toward Louisiana, Texas, and Mexico. Now, in the bigger picture to the north, watching this sector in here, severe weather potential today, even parts of Tennessee. Watching over toward Virginia, there's some of the rain offshore of Cape Cod, mainly to the east there of the Avalon Peninsula. It'll start to get closer to Bermuda. You see it right here. This here is our Sunday, so tomorrow afternoon. That's the front that's almost going to get stuck in place. Here we have that surge of some of that dust that is around, kind of working its way back toward the north, temporarily keeping some things quieter. That rain getting closer to Bermuda later on Monday, in Monday night. And then right through here, this is where we'll be watching to see if anything does develop. Some of this rain actually just gets stuck. And it actually may work its way back, as I mentioned, toward Florida and then into the Gulf. And that's why we'll see if it does develop. As of now, it looks like a low chance of development, but something we'll be watching together as we go forward. Watching the seas as we go through the day. This is a 3-day loop. This is tomorrow, working our way into Monday. Just a little choppier in the central sections of the Caribbean Atlantic passageways. We're actually looking okay at this point. Again, a lot of dry air, not seeing any huge tropical waves moving by. Scattered storms around though in Florida. With that, back toward Georgia, 2 to 3 inches of rain. Could get clipped by a couple showers. Parts of the Bahamas. And again, the rain chance here is low, but it's not zero. Jamaica, we could get a pop-up storm. Cayman Islands, 1 or 2. Cuba, Haiti, the DR, back through Puerto Rico. Watching out for some of the dust, though, and then we'll get that next batch of dust starting to roll into these areas once we work our way into Monday. So for us in St. Kitts and Nevis, Sebastacia, small chance of a shower. Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart's, back to the British and U.S. Virgin Islands. But that dust will move in again Monday into Tuesday. Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, even Guadeloupe. Guadeloupe to the south, back through Dominica, may catch a shower. Same thing, St. Lucia. And we could get a few spotty showers. Barbados, St. Vincent the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, a little bit more. Suriname, Guyana, northeastern sections of Venezuela. Not as much through the ABC Islands. A little quieter in northern Venezuela, northern Colombia. Scattered areas of rain back through Central America, including Panama, Costa Rica. But again, the rain chance is down a bit because of some of the dry air and the dust. Some bigger storms, though, possible still in and around Mexico City, and we'll be watching some of that lifting up to the north. And here's some of that weather again, that front that will be hanging out in that, some substantial rain in some spots. So again, rain chance lower, but not zero for us. Jamaica, we're looking at about a 20 to 30% chance of a pop-up storm. Could even have 1 or 2 at nighttime. Cayman Islands, a 20 to 30% chance. Few spotty showers, Trinidad and Tobago, but again, Tobago, it is a little bit less. We're looking at about a 30% chance. Trinidad, roughly about a 50% chance. So a slight difference. The more south you are, better chance of rain. 30 to 40% chance in Barbados. In building somewhat by Monday, better chance of a few showers back through St. Lucia. 30% chance today in Grenada, a 40% chance tomorrow. As we work our way into St. Vincent the Grenadines, Sunday and Monday, rain chance about 40%. 30 to 40% chance holds the next few days in Martinique, a 30 to 40% chance in Dominica, higher by the time we get into Monday. Monday as well, back into Guadeloupe, rain chance will be up to 50%. Back to Antigua and Barbuda, rain chance 30 to 40%. Not super high, but we could catch a shower. Not super high, St. Kitts and Nevis and Montserrat. I'm watching that dust. And Guil and St. Bart's, 10 to 20% chance. 10 to 20% chance. St. Martin, Saba, and Statia, an isolated shower storm. One or two could be strong. It is hot out there. So while the atmosphere is a little drier, there is still a lot of heat energy. So again, if you get a storm, it could be on the strong side. U.S. and British Virgin Islands, small chance of a passing shower. The Bahamas, northern, central, southern, rain chance staying low, very isolated showers around. Turks and Caicos monitoring some of the dust. Couple pop-up storms back through Haiti possible by the time we get into Monday. Across the DR, rain chance up to about 40%. Belize, we're looking at a 30 to 40% chance. Yesterday, we had some bigger storms in some spots. Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, rain chance holding at about 20%. Can't rule out a shower. About a 60% chance, though, in Guyana. That's where we have a higher chance, of 50 to 60% chance the next 3 days back through Suriname. Rain chance pretty minimal today in Cuba. It'll start to build some with a few afternoon storms. 40 to 50% chance, Costa Rica and Panama. 30 to 40% chance the next 3 days in Nicaragua, and holding on to an even 30% chance the next few days in Honduras. Rain chance a little higher today, Guatemala and El Salvador. Then it backs off tomorrow and Monday. We're down to a 30% chance. Mexico City, though, we're still active. Rain chance 70%. By the time we get into Monday across the Yucatan Peninsula, slightly better chance of getting some showers and storms, and a 30% chance in northern Colombia. About a 30 to 40% chance northern sections of Venezuela. By Monday night in particular, a better chance of rain as we get into Bermuda with that front that is closing in. Afternoon, evening storms, they continue. Central Florida and Orlando, slightly better chance as well back through Tampa. South Florida, we're looking at about a 30 to 40% chance. Palm Beach over toward the Keys, Miami included, back through Fort Myers. Houston, rain chance staying on the small side, and we could have some of that dust around, especially Sunday into Monday, tomorrow into Monday, some of that dust. So monitoring the earthquake activity. Keep me posted in the comments section. We've had increased activity in the region. Areas of dust on the move, and I'll monitor some of the tropical waves out there. Hopefully we could actually get some to bring some spots, some needed rain at this point. So I hope you're doing well. Be safe and have a really good weekend ahead.
Yeah, you're just covering that, man. So
You stole my thunder, brother. Literally speaking.
I mean, look, it's gonna be one. Let's just admit it. It's not a matter of if, but when, and that when is now. It's gonna be this year where these earthquakes and the Ring of Fire is lit, man. It's just happening, and there's no turning back. And I think Mother Nature just had enough of all the white folk bullshit and the hate in this world that we just need to have a total cleansing of all this bullshit. That's what it's coming down to. And the black man and the black woman are going to be the ones to save the world. You want to comment on that, or you agree with that, or what?
You said it for me, bro. I don't need to say anything.
All right. So let's go on to the next one. We got two more, and then that'll be it. This one goes quick. I'll be right back.
You or anybody you know live anywhere in this area, you need to watch.
Now, this is the Madrid fault going from the green area, not much, slight damage, then a little bit of damage, severe damage in the orange area. It's almost in Chicago. Now, I remember back in the day when I was living with my mother, the buildings on the lakefront was swaying from back and back. And I mean, I thought I was a dead man. But it broke the wall, it cracked the wall. So you got almost here, you got the severe damage for all of the states in that area and a catastrophic damage. So we're looking at um, a hellified catastrophe, chaos, no water, no food, no medicine, no hospitals in all of this area. Well, here, the yellow area going forward. Now you're talking about Seattle and Mount St. Helena, which is right around here, and then you got what's the name of that park? National what park?
Yellowstone.
Yeah, so I think that's around here, and then you got
Most of
in
it
the
is in
Colorado,
Wyoming. Most of it is in Wyoming.
Wyoming. Wyoming right over here is west of Illinois. Where I know it. I'm not that hot with the state, but I know Illinois when I see it. So it's, Wyoming is west of Illinois. So yeah, it's gonna be one, man. And we just remember along the Madrid Fault, you got 15 nuclear power plants, and they're not talking about the food supply that's been damaged from the Fukushima fallout that is in America's food supply. So let's just say the normal radiation level was 100, and then the FDA changes it to 300. You're fucked, man. Let's continue.
This video because this is supposed to be a simulation of what the new Madrid fault line could do. So basically the National Guard has been in Missouri holding multiple drills just in case an 8.4 magnitude earthquake hits the new Madrid line. Which is crazy. I just showed you guys this photo in the intro, but this is the new simulation of what it could do. I'm actually in the red. This is terrifying. So the Missouri Department of Natural Resources now says that there's a 10% chance that the state will experience a magnitude 7 or higher earthquake in the next 50 years. They're saying that obviously an earthquake like that would be extremely catastrophic, but there's an even better chance that a major earthquake greater than 6 could cause massive damage too. And then they're saying that the estimate actually goes up to 25% that Missouri will see a quake that large in the next 30 years. Basically, all of this stuff has been going down for the past few days. There's actually simulation videos showing what the approximate damage could be across. If you or anybody you know live anywhere in this area,
okay.
you need to watch this.
So yeah, man, it's gonna be one. It's gonna be greater than 6. It's gonna be like 8.5 to 9, man. Because this shit been the tension in the earth has been with the plates has been such stress or under stress and such tension. It's gonna be 8.5 or better. The first quake, I'm gonna say, the first quake 8.5, the next quake 9.5. It's just gonna fuck shit up. That's the bottom line of that. So let's do this one, and then I'll be back on the other side. This is only 10 minutes. 200 plus earthquakes shake the new Madrid fault. The big one could be close. I'll be right back.
The stillness of America's heartland, where the Mississippi River winds through farmland and small towns, a terrifying secret lies buried beneath the earth. It doesn't rumble often. It doesn't crack open the earth without warning. But when it does, history shows it can change everything. More than 2 centuries ago, this hidden fault line violently awoke. The ground convulsed, the Mississippi River flowed backwards, and church bells rang 1,000 miles away. Entire forests sank, and the land reshaped itself overnight. And yet, most Americans have never even heard of this dangerous fault line. The fault is still very much alive, grinding quietly beneath our feet, storing energy and waiting. Scientists now warn that a megaquake could strike again at any time, bringing devastation across the Midwest on a scale this nation has never seen. Cities would collapse, rivers could shift, and millions could be left in darkness. And unlike the West Coast, this region is not prepared. Today, let's delve into the dangers of the new Madrid fault line and explore the looming threat of a megaquake and its catastrophic impact. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button and like this video, as it's the best way to support this channel. In the early 19th century, the American frontier was still in its infancy. Settlers had pushed westward, forming small communities along the Mississippi River in what would become Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. It was in this sparsely populated region that beginning on December 16, 1811, the earth began to convulse. The first of a series of massive earthquakes struck near the town of New Madrid, Missouri, at around 2 a.m. The tremor, estimated to have been between magnitude 7.2 and 8.0, shook homes off foundations, cracked the ground open, and awakened people hundreds of miles away. But this was just the beginning. Over the following months, the region was hit by two more catastrophic quakes. On January 23rd and February 7th, 1812, along with hundreds of aftershocks. These were not ordinary earthquakes. They were so intense that the Mississippi River briefly flowed backward. Entire stretches of forest were submerged in newly formed lakes, including Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee. Chimneys collapsed in Cincinnati. Sidewalks cracked in Washington, D.C., and tremors were felt as far away as Canada. Had these quakes occurred today in a densely populated and interconnected society, the outcome would have been apocalyptic. In 1811, they were a terrifying glimpse into the raw, destructive power that lies hidden beneath the heart of America.
Hold on.
The New Madrid seismic zone is a network of faults stretching roughly 150 miles across the central United States, from northeast Arkansas through southeastern Missouri, western Tennessee, and into southern Illinois. Unlike the famous San Andreas Fault in California, which sits at a boundary between tectonic plates, the New Madrid Fault lies in the middle of the North American plate. This makes its activity especially puzzling and dangerous. Geologists believe that the fault is a reactivation of an ancient rift zone, a region where the continent once threatened to split apart hundreds of millions of years ago. That rifting eventually failed, but left behind weaknesses in the crust. These weak zones continue to be affected by tectonic stress, which builds up over centuries and is released in sudden, violent bursts. What makes the New Madrid seismic zone particularly alarming is its tendency to produce large earthquakes that are felt over enormous distances. Due to the solid, dense bedrock of the eastern United States, seismic waves from a New Madrid quake would travel farther and more powerfully than those from a California quake. A major tremor here wouldn't just affect one state. It could damage infrastructure, disrupt transportation, and cripple power systems across more than a dozen. It's been over 200 years since the Great New Madrid earthquakes, but the fault has not been quiet. Thousands of small earthquakes have been recorded in the region since 1974, many of them too small to feel, but all of them important. These microquakes are the pulse of a still living fault line, signaling that the system remains active. The United States Geological Survey and other seismological institutions estimate there is a significant chance, some studies suggest as high as 40%, of a magnitude 6.0 or greater earthquake, striking the New Madrid zone in the next few decades. While not on the same scale as the quakes of 1811 and 1812, even a magnitude 6.0 event in the modern era could cause catastrophic damage. One major concern is that much of the Midwest is poorly prepared. Unlike California, where strict seismic building codes have been in place for decades, states in the New Madrid region have historically underestimated their risk. Buildings, bridges, levees, dams, and pipelines in this region were not designed with strong earthquakes in mind. In many places, a powerful quake would reduce entire neighborhoods to rubble and leave critical infrastructure inoperable. If a megaquake were to strike the New Madrid seismic zone today, the consequences would be profound. Cities such as Memphis, St. Louis, Little Rock, and even Louisville could experience severe shaking. Memphis, in particular, sits near the epicenter of the fault system and has older brick buildings, fragile infrastructure, and limited earthquake preparedness. National-level exercise simulations have modeled the effects of a magnitude 7.7 quake in the region. The results were staggering: over 80,000 casualties, millions left homeless, and economic damage exceeding $300 billion. Major highways and railroads crossing the Mississippi River would be severed. Fuel pipelines that supply the eastern U.S. could rupture. Power outages could last weeks. Drinking water systems would fail. Emergency response would be overwhelmed in every direction. And then there is the Mississippi River itself. A repeat of 1811 seismic uplift and subsidence could dam the river temporarily or divert its flow. Ports, shipping lanes, and agricultural supply routes could all be disrupted, adding to an already national-scale disaster. Although the New Madrid seismic zone is hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean, it still poses a surprising and often overlooked threat: inland tsunamis, or seiches. These are massive standing waves generated within enclosed or semi-enclosed bodies of water, triggered by the intense shaking of an earthquake. During the 1811 and 1812 New Madrid quakes, eyewitnesses reported large waves surging along the Mississippi River, capsizing boats, flooding low-lying banks, and, in some cases, even pushing the river to flow backward temporarily. The violent shaking displaced vast volumes of water, creating waves powerful enough to inundate riverfront settlements. If a similar quake were to strike today, the same phenomenon could occur, but with far more devastating consequences. Major cities like Memphis and St. Louis, along with dozens of smaller riverfront communities, have grown dramatically in population and infrastructure since the early 19th century. Critical facilities, bridges, ports, fuel depots, and water treatment plants now line the Mississippi and its tributaries. A large quake-induced seiche could sweep through these zones with little warning, causing localized flooding, structural damage, and additional chaos during an already overwhelming disaster. It's a hidden danger, one that underscores just how complex and far-reaching the New Madrid threat truly is. One of the most frustrating and terrifying aspects of the New Madrid fault is that we don't know when it will strike again. Earthquakes, especially those in intraplate regions, are notoriously hard to predict. What we do know is that stress is slowly building. GPS measurements have shown subtle ground movements in the region, consistent with accumulating tectonic pressure. Historical records, geological trench studies, and paleoseismic evidence all point to a pattern of large quakes striking the New Madrid seismic zone every few hundred years. Awareness of the New Madrid threat has grown in recent years, as authorities have launched education and preparedness campaigns. Some cities have begun retrofitting schools, bridges, and hospitals, but funding is limited and awareness is uneven. Many Americans living in the region don't know they're at risk. Unlike Californians who grew up learning about the big one, Midwesterners are often surprised to hear that their homes sit above one of the most dangerous faults in North America. Though modern society often forgets, the land does not. The scars of the 1811 and 1812 earthquakes still mark the landscape. These are reminders not just of what happened, but of what can happen again. It's tempting to see the Midwest as a stable, peaceful part of the country. But beneath the cornfields, rivers, and highways lies a broken and restless piece of ancient earth, one that has not finished speaking. Scientists can't say exactly when the next big quake will strike. It could be tomorrow, or it could be decades away. But the history, the science, and the silent tremors all point to the same conclusion. It will happen again.
Now, this is what I'm not going to play it, but hold on. I'm going to put it in the comment. The El Nino is fuerte, very strong, and along with the Sahara, the dust, the seismic activity, the plates, tectonic plates, and other things above the ground in the ocean. It's gonna be one, man. It's gonna be one. You want to comment?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Well, that's about the size of it. Let me. I was thinking while we were watching that. I want to go to Pilot. I want to see what Bob got to say. And hold on. Let's see. Hello.
Before we
Hello.
go,
No, go ahead.
we got to cover Carmelo Anthony a little more.
Right there.
Okay, hold on. Let me do the pilot. Hey, what's going on? How you feel?
I'm feeling great and ready to chat.
Okay, well,
Huh?
listen. Give me a rundown verbally of what can happen if the Madrid fault that happened in the Madrid fault earthquake happened in today's world, with 15 nuclear power plants sitting right on the fault or next to it or not very far from it. What is the economic and political fallout of that can be, and the physical fallout that could be?
Absolutely. That's an intense scenario to think about. If a major earthquake hit the Madrid fault today with nuclear plants nearby, we'd be looking at a pretty complex situation. First off, there'd be immediate safety concerns, like making sure those plants were stable and that any radiation risks were under control. Economically, you'd see big disruptions in power supply, and that could ripple through the economy. Absolutely. It's definitely a scenario that would spark a whole lot of conversation and a big push for better preparedness. It's definitely worth thinking through.
Yeah, but give me a dollar figure or how many people you think you're going that could die.
All right, so let's break it down. If a major earthquake hit the New Madrid fault, like a big one that affected nuclear plants, there could be some serious consequences. Economically, we're talking potentially over $300 billion in losses. That's based on some estimates for a major seismic event in that area. In terms of casualties, some projections suggest tens of thousands of people could be affected, or even more depending on the severity. One FEMA estimate for a repeat of the historic quakes is around 86,000 casualties and millions displaced.
Okay.
And politically,
Okay, but what about an earthquake registered on the Richter scale of 8.5 to 9.5? What would be the economic and damage from that?
so if we're talking about an earthquake in the range of 8.5 to 9.5 on the Richter scale, that's considered a great earthquake, and it's on a whole other level of devastation. Essentially, each step up in magnitude massively increases the energy released. For example, an 8.5 earthquake releases exponentially more energy than even a 7.5 earthquake. In terms of economic and political damage, you're looking at potentially hundreds of billions of dollars. The degree of devastation to infrastructure would be immense. You might see poorly built structures collapsing entirely, while even well-built buildings would suffer serious damage. Casualties in a quake that size could unfortunately be very high. Tens of thousands of casualties or more depending on building standards and emergency preparedness. So it's definitely a massive scale of impact.
Okay, and the last thing is, if you consider adding that possibility of a 8.5 to 9.5 earthquake happening along the Madrid fault, what about St. Helen erupting, the San Andreas fault of an 8.0 on the San Andreas fault, as well as what were you saying, bro? The other one, the park, the national park.
Mount St.
So
Helens.
we got Mount. No, I already mentioned that Mount St. Helen. Then what else? The national park, Yellowstone National Park.
Yellowstone.
So we have So we have Yellowstone National Park, Madrid Fault, St. Helen, Mount St. Helen, and a earthquake happening on the San Andreas Fault. With all of those four happening, or two of those four happening, would that be the end of America, or would that be a new beginning? Because I don't believe that would be the end of America, but it would be a test for America. Will you explain on that one?
Wow, that's quite a lineup of scenarios. If you imagine all those events overlapping, eruptions at Mount St. Helens and Yellowstone, plus major earthquakes on the New Madrid and San Andreas faults, it would definitely be a huge test for the country. But I like how you put it, not necessarily the end, but a test of America's resilience. Such a series of events would be incredibly challenging, but it could also be a chance for communities to come together, rebuild, and find new strength. It would definitely be a monument.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, dear. We'll talk tomorrow.
Of course, I'm always here to chat. I'm glad we could explore these ideas together.
Okay.
Have a great.
All right, you too. Thank you. All right, so now, now you got her input.
I'm gonna tell your wife you cheating on her with some white bitch.
Hey, I depend on Copilot to break it down, man. That Copilot is not exactly dumb, but yeah. So now we know that the economic fallout just for the Madrid fall to $300 billion, not even counting Yellowstone National Park and Saint Helen and the San Andreas Fault there in California. So once again, we're going to wrap it up. But you want to say anything before we go?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, I want to talk about Carmelo Anthony a little bit before we go.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, with the new developments that happened. Hold on, brother. We got a lot to talk about. I mean, I don't want to keep you on for another hour, but we
No, it don't matter.
Okay, no, hold on, because I'm fitting to come with it right now. I don't know if you heard about Trump made the Prime Minister of England resign last week.
Right. Yeah, I heard.
His name is Keir Starmer.
Right.
Okay. On the same day, that was the same day that Alan Greenspan, who used to be the head of the Federal Reserve,
Right.
and Clive Davis both died.
Okay.
So the connection that I made with those three events happening is something that you mentioned a little while ago. I didn't get into it because I didn't want to stunt your flow. But
Right.
remember, and we've talked about this on this show before, so I'm sure you're gonna remember. Remember when right after Trump got elected the first time, that big shootout in Las Vegas.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, at that concert.
Right.
And then he went to Europe and the Middle East, and that's when he took control. He got in front of the Queen
Right.
when they walked in the lawn in Buckingham Palace or wherever the fuck they were. And
Right.
then when he took that picture with the Pope and his wife, and he was smiling like he just got the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, now, so I'm glad you remember, because Greenspan was the first outside of the Bretton Woods Accords and all those treaties that were signed, and when they placed the Federal Reserve together. Greenspan was the first in the modern era to really do what's called money magic. And
Okay.
when you say that word magic, it has a K at the end, meaning that it's extracurricular above, what's supposed to be done. So
Right.
him passing away, and then the devil of the entertainment industry passing away on the same day that the UK, and we know through 3 cities, which would be Fleet Street in London, controls all the money of the world. They launder it on Wall Street, and then they distribute it to whoever it's going to. So Fleet Street controls the money of the world. The Vatican controls the religious center, and the entertainment is covered in, for the most part, L.A. and New York. But let's say intention, because Clive Davis is from New York, born in Brooklyn, that it's New York in this case. So that was a big thing, because when you combine those 3 events together, the way I tied it up was exactly how I told you. So in other words, and I said that Clive Davis is not going to go to prison all we know, him and Greenspan could have been put on ice like they did with Ruth Bader Ginsburg for such an event to, make the announcement so that everybody can start knowing that we're soon going to get relief, like I told you, and coincidentally 2 weeks before July 4th. So
Okay.
I'm tying all this up to say that I believe that the QFS, I've got evidence that the QFS is already online because the SWIFT system has been killed. And I've been tagging you in these articles when I see them. Right. So what I'm saying is these are further indicators of our imminent victory and what you said earlier insofar as we're going to take over. So I just want to add that in, because even though it ain't about what we're talking about directly, it's all involved indirectly, because I believe that Trump and his administration and his people that are behind him are dovetailing the EBS along the lines with the imminent Great Solar Flash.
Okay. All right.
You want to touch that?
No, I've heard of that, but like I say, I don't know if you've seen the wannabe Anunnaki tall white motherfuckers sitting down with Trump, and I don't believe that bullshit. They're always trying to.
Those are allegedly Pelagians. Those are not Anunnaki.
Well, they ain't white. If there's something, they ain't white. They ain't white. Shit. And that's some AI bullshit that they got going. White folks always trying to do shit that ain't got no motherfucking sense. Always. You can count on these motherfuckers to fuck up some shit. Always. Because they're a pile of shit, they don't know shit, and that's the reason why they get into a lot of shit. Because they just think they're just shitty. Shit, what the fuck? Am I lying? Or, if I'm lying, I'll admit it. But I don't think I'm lying. We're lying.
Speaking of which, I saw something about something you showed a few weeks back in regard to the Indians that.
Yeah, man, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like I admitted to you. When I see a green 3-titted bitch with a wet ass pussy willing to fuck me day and night, night and day, then I believe in some aliens. Until then, I'm not believing in this shit. Man, come on, man. White folks see some shit, man. They ain't never been no nigga seeing a fucking alien. I remember watching the Phil Donahue show. They had one black guy on there, and he was just admitting to the shit. But we know, if you black, we know that motherfucker was lying. He was just trying to get some shit off the table that white folk can go along with. You know what I mean? Come on, man. When I see a green bitch with titties and a wet pussy willing to suck the shit out my dick and I come all up in her ass, mouth, and pussy, then I will believe it, sir.
Hey, don't steal the Green Giant's girlfriend, okay?
Yeah, that's the green. I don't give a fuck. That bitch would be covered in all that milk. I'm just being honest. Let me finish. If Captain Kirk can fuck bitches throughout the universe, I can fuck bitches, green bitches, when they come to the earth.
How they say it in Spanish? Saca la leche.
Yeah, saca la leche. Sí, saca la leche, mamá. Huevo, esa ella la puta. Sí, ya. Voy a apoyarla profundamente. Sin parar.
There you go. Deep. Go deeper.
Sí, go deep.
Don't give it a BBC. Give it a BBC.
Yeah, sir. Profundista. All right. Well, yeah. You're gonna say something about Carmelo Anthony?
Yeah. He has I don't know if you've been following. He has a new team now, like 5 or 6 lawyers. They've already, now that the tapes and some of the testimony has been released, they're already pointing at all the improprieties that happened in this case, and it is definitely grounds for an appeal. He's definitely going to be granted, and hopefully, with all that happening, he'll be able to get out and at least wait for his next trial date, because these appeals easily could take, because all of the people who defended all of the attorneys who defended Austin Metcalf, or the state, let's say it's the state, all they're going to do is try to delay it as long as possible so that he doesn't get out, and they can keep him in there for as long as possible so he can work in there and probably make 80 cents a day producing shit for those motherfuckers. So he got a new team, but it's going to take some time to get him out, but hopefully he'll get out before the end of the year or so, and be able to attack a new trial, so on and so forth. Or even better, hopefully all this shit will be over by then, because the Solar Flash and all that will come, and they're gonna have to let people out, and Jubilee and blah blah blah. I'm looking forward to the future, bro, because it's great. However we look at it, we just gotta suffer through this time period until we get there. So that's my take on that. You want to take on? You want to say something?
Yeah, just wrapping it up. As we always say, for the next 24/7, 365, stay black and fuck all white folks, man. I'll see you next week, man. And we'll talk through the week.
Hang on after. I want to holler at you for another quick second or two.
Okay, all right.
This is a second or two.